Do you think you know Spider-Man's origin? Do you think you know Spider-Man's ultimate origin? Do you think you know Spider-Man's all different Marvel origin? Do you think you know Spider-Man's Marvel Now 2.0 origin? Well, now we have Spider-Man's Amazing Origin. This is an updated retelling of the story to allow it to be in a more modern day. And if you want to celebrate the release of the new movie with me and the rest of the team here at Comicstorian, then make sure you check out our new Spider-Man t-shirt, which I should be wearing, but they didn't deliver it on time. Either way, it's on the screen at this exact moment. We're gonna have it on sale for 3 weeks, starting the beginning of the Spider-Man series of videos. I'm not quite sure if this is gonna be the first one or not, but either way, it's going to be for sale for 3 weeks from the beginning of the Spider-Man series. I hope you guys enjoy, and let me know what you think of the t-shirt down below. Now, before we can get to the video, I have to let you know that you're at the Comicstorian Complete Story series, and this is the location where you can get your favorite trade paperbacks and single issues read back to you dramatically as we break them down for the most ultimate recap ever. Don't forget to give the video a like if you enjoy it, and let's get on with the show. It was Sunday morning in Queens when Uncle Ben went to go wake up Peter Parker. Peter rolled over, telling him that he doesn't feel well. He's probably going to puke. He might have chronic fatigue syndrome. Uncle Ben rips the bed sheets off, telling him that excuses never did anyone good. Besides, he's too bright to deprive the school of that big brain. Also, make sure to make your bed this time. Later, as Peter finally gets up and goes to class, Sally tells Jennifer that they need to think of a new name to call puny Parker over there. Jennifer says maybe perverted Parker, and Peter tells the two of them that he can hear them. What are they even talking about anyway? Sally holds up her phone, telling him to not act like he doesn't know. She doesn't pay for text messaging to get these kinds of messages from him. In the back, Flash Thompson begins to laugh, and Peter tells Sally that the next time she might want to ask a question that only he might know, like 2 + 2. The class starts to laugh at Flash Thompson, and the teacher tells them all to settle down. He's going to be passing out the results to the pop quiz that they had the other day. And as he does this, he tells everyone that only Mr. Parker managed to get a perfect score, which is why he's presenting him with these free tickets to a demonstration at the New York City Hall of Science. Flash starts coughing, saying, "Suck up!" underneath his breath as he throws a wadded paper ball at Peter Parker. The teacher then asks Flash if there's anything he'd like to say. As the class ends, Peter heads out to the Hall of Science to see the radiation exhibit. And as the tour guide starts to explain the wonders of radiation, a live demonstration is shown above everyone. But on that ceiling, a small spider begins to spin its web down through that radiation. Peter looks up, saying that this is so cool, but before he can finish his sentence, he feels a prick on his hand, and he yells, "Ow!" The tour guide asks if there's anything the matter, and Peter says that something bit him, and he runs outside. When he looks at his hand, he sees where he was bitten, and it begins to appear infected, and then he notices the small spider that he slapped. Peter looks at it and says that it looks like a jumping spider, which shouldn't be venomous, but before he can even finish that, he runs over to the trash can, and he begins to throw up. As he begins to feel nauseous, he begins to wander around, and he ends up out on the street. But just before a speeding truck can hit him, he feels something tingling, and he leaps out of the street and onto a building. He looks around for a moment and he asks, "Why am I not falling? Not falling is good, but I should be falling." Peter starts to climb up the building, and as he reaches the top, he grabs onto an air vent, and he begins to crush it. When he gets up, he says, "Okay, I just need to assess this situation. I climbed onto a wall, I crushed a pipe without even trying, and it feels like something is trying to mutate inside of me. Wait, I'm too young to be mutated. Maybe it won't be so bad. No one died from a little radioactive spider bite, right?" He begins to think, what if he was turned into some kind of a monster, where hundreds of tiny spiders are gonna crawl out of his skin? As Peter begins to head home that night, he begins to crawl around his room, saying that he's somewhat over the nausea, but he's feeling pretty amazing. He can cling to surfaces, his reflexes are near super-inhuman, and he doesn't even need his glasses to see anymore. He jumps around the room and then he runs out to the garage to test his strength. He lifts up the dumbbell and he starts to twist and knot the bars, saying that he would like to see Flash knock him down now. He then heads back to his room, thinking about how he could do anything with this kind of ability. Then he hears about the wrestling match on TV, and the announcer asking if there's anyone that could defeat the great Crusher Hogan. Peter stares at a moment and he says, "He could be famous." A couple of weeks later, Peter sits in his room perfecting his greatest invention ever, web shooters. He tells himself that the agent he met today was pretty skeptical, but after he's done this, there won't be any more puny Parker. He puts on the web shooters and then he presses down. The whip! And the entire room is covered in webbing. Peter says maybe he should dilute the web formula just a bit. And the next morning, he finishes putting the final touches on his new costume, and he begins to think of his new name. He, from this day forward, will be known as Johnny Arachnid. As Peter looks at the baggy costume, he begins to think, maybe Webhead? Kid Spider? Spider-Man? He takes out the card that he got from the agent and he calls, telling him, hey, it's the spider guy. I know I said that I could make my own costume and all, but the agent Kabash tells him, kid, your timing couldn't have been better. We'll get you a costume because in 3 weeks, you're gonna be a guest on the Clinton King Show. As the coming weeks pass, the Clinton King Show begins to record, and Clinton tells the audience that they've all been asking questions lately about this Spider-Man guy. So who better to ask than the man himself, the amazing Spider-Man! Spider-Man, hanging upside down, tells everyone, hiya! Clinton then says, now that we have him here, how about we ask you some questions? Like, what do you look like underneath that mask? Is there a spider girlfriend back at home? Peter tells him that he thought he was just gonna be doing some tricks, and Clinton laughs, ha ha ha! A guy that looks like a spider wants to keep his privacy. A recluse, maybe? After the show, Peter's agent Kabash shouts, telling him, what did I tell you? This is way better than those wrestling matches that you've been doing. Peter starts to take off the mask, telling him, it's so hard to breathe, but Kabash stops him, telling him, look, I don't want to see your face, and judging by the sound of your voice, you're probably a minor. As far as I'm concerned, I only know you as the amazing Spider-Man, and I'm gonna pay in cash. As the two go on, a security guard shouts, somebody stop that guy! Suddenly a man runs by and the thief looks at Peter, telling him, nice outfit, and he continues to run. The security guard stops, catching his breath, asking him, why didn't you do anything? And Peter says, hey, that wasn't my problem. I'm not getting paid to be a rent-a-cop. So if you want to stop bad guys, you should get your own superpowers. The security guard goes back to chasing after the thief, and Kabash says that you're already getting the hang of fame, kid. You're looking out for #1. But with Peter appearing more and more on the Clinton King Show, the news outlets begin to post more and more of the amazing Spider-Man. However, one news source isn't posting about him, and that's the Daily Bugle. J. Jonah Jameson pulls down his vape, shouting, every 2-bit rag is glorifying this masked goon. I, however, am about to show everyone why the Daily Bugle is still the best-selling paper in town. Because something that people love more than someone to love is someone to hate. The next day, after making an appearance at the mall, Peter notices Sally and Flash from school and he decides to go talk to them. But before he can make it over there, a woman by the name of Katie Kernan stops him. She says that she's from the Daily Bugle, and she's wondering if he had a moment to answer a few new questions. Peter says that he's kind of busy, and Katie tells him that it would only take a few minutes, so Peter tells her fine. She holds out her phone to record and she asks how does he feel knowing that he can relate to all ages as Spider-Man? Peter says, well, demographics and all, but Katie goes on telling him that some have even said that the Spider-Man could be seen as a predator. Someone who wears a mask could very well be corrupting the kids. Peter is taken back by that and he asks her, wait, what? And Katie goes on, come on, hiding your identity, choosing a spider as an emblem, these are all things that a predator would do. Peter tells her, no, it's just because I was bitten by a radioactive spider and right now, I don't have time for this. As he leaves, Katie folds her arms, stating that as she would have guessed, he has no comment. But as Peter runs off, he ends up running into a man, smashing his pretzel into his chest. Flash steps back, stating, oh my god, it's Spider-Man, dude, you are so awesome! My name is Eugene Thompson, everyone calls me Flash, and I'm like your biggest fan. Flash then asks, can you sign my napkin? And Sally says that she is so tweeting about this. Later that night, Peter heads home thinking about how this is so awesome. Other than the interview that sucked, Flash, Jennifer, and Sally all loved him. And as he gets ready to walk into his house, he sees police surrounding the area, standing on his porch. Peter runs inside asking what happened, and Aunt May gets up saying that it was Uncle Ben. He was. But before she can finish, Peter sees the blood on the floor. One of the officers comes inside shouting that they found the guy. They gotta move now. Out in the storm, Peter sits atop of a building, watching where the police are going. And inside of that abandoned warehouse, the burglar shouts that he can't keep having these cops chase him. He then hears thumping coming from the ceiling. As he goes to look, he feels water dripping down on his shoulder. And when he looks up, he sees Peter hanging from the ceiling. As the man begins to run, Peter catches him with a web, and he flings him back into a pile of boxes. The man says, come on, I'll cut you in on the deal, just let me. And Peter tells him, cut me in? He punches the man, shouting, I don't want to hear anything that you have to say. You're gonna pay for what you did. And as Peter pulls back one more punch, he sees the man's face, and he remembers it from the night that he was on TV. He stumbles back, stating, it's you, the guy from the studio. If I had known that what you would have done, Uncle Ben is dead because of you. He walks off, saying that Uncle Ben told him that with great power also comes great responsibility, but he just ignored him. He doesn't deserve to have this power. The days pass and the town gathers for Uncle Ben's funeral. And as Peter and Aunt May return home, Peter looks down at the newspaper and sees the headlines. Spider-Man, menace. He then hears Aunt May trying to do something and ends up crying. And he thinks that maybe, before he retires Spider-Man, he can do a little good. The next day, as he begins to dig through his drawers, Peter tells himself that if he had that old digital camera, maybe he could get a few pictures of that guy Vulture, the one that the papers are talking about, and make some money. As he digs around, Aunt May says that they kept it in the bedroom, and whatever he's planning on doing with it, he better not neglect his studies. Later, Peter sits atop of a building saying that the Vulture guy passes by here almost every day. If he gets a few good pictures of it, maybe he can make some money. He flips through the photo reel and he sees pictures of Uncle Ben. He says that he's really gonna miss him. And just then that strange sensation goes off again and the Vulture swoops by. Peter webs off stating that he would like to see one of those photographers at the Bugle get a better picture than this. But as he tries to chase, he ends up losing the Vulture. And as he looks, the Vulture flies by again, kicking Peter in the back, sending him onto the nearby rooftop. He crashes down and the camera shatters, and as Peter goes to grab the memory card, he begins to feel that weird tingling sensation again. Before he can react though, the Vulture swings by, knocking him to the ground. He flies down, slamming into Peter, asking him, "Do you even know who I am?" And Peter tells him, "Let me guess, you're not only the president of the hair club, you're also a client." The Vulture flies up, grabbing Peter, telling him, "Just keep making jokes." And he throws Peter into a water tower. Before shutting the lid, the Vulture tells him, "I'm sorry, though I like seeing my name in the papers, I'm a bit camera shy. And right now, I'm far too busy to deal with you." Later that night, as he goes home soaking wet, he says that wasn't his proudest moment. Getting beaten down by a grandpa-grade geezer, and then getting dumped into a water tower, and then finding out the hard way that web fluid and water don't mix. At least he held onto the memory card, so it wasn't a complete loss. The next day at the Daily Bugle, Jonah looks over at Peter and says that he hates to say this, but these photos aren't half bad. Katie brings Peter in saying that this was the man who took the pictures, and Jonah asks if this is some kind of a joke. That kid is a kid! He shouts that it doesn't matter though, we're dealing with some kind of wonder kid. And right now the Vulture is out there claiming to be the greatest thief who ever lived. I want pictures of him, and I want them right now! Later that night, Peter fixed up the camera so that he could attach it to his belt, because he had a hunch that if the Vulture flew by any electromagnets, this new gizmo would give him the shock of his life. The next day in Manhattan, the city gathers around the Diamond District, where the Vulture made his claim of robbing diamonds out from under security. One of the security officers asks if they really think that the Vulture is going to show up again. And just as he says that, the sewer lid begins to shake. Seconds later, the Vulture shoots out, sending the sewer lid flying into the crowd, and he goes straight for Katie. She braces herself for the hit, but suddenly she's saved by webbing. And Spider-Man says, "Hey there, maybe the next piece that you write can include the sensational save that I just gave you." The Vulture grabs the guards, throwing them at Spider-Man, telling him, "We can't have them following us now, can we?" With Spider-Man's camera going off, Spider-Man webs up the guards before they can hit the ground, and he shouts that was another amazing rescue! The Vulture hops back into the sewer system and begins to fly through the subway, and as he lands, Spider-Man hangs onto a passing train and says, "Hey, make sure to smile for the camera." As the Vulture tries to attack him, Spider-Man pushes him into a train and he webs up his face, saying that this is no way to greet the man who got his ugly mug on the front page of the Bugle. The Vulture rips off the webbing, shouting, "I've had enough of your games." And suddenly he flies up the subway back out into the streets. Before getting away though, Spider-Man webs onto the Vulture's leg, telling him that if you would just hold still, this would be so much easier. The Vulture crashes into a building, causing the rocks to fall down onto the people. But once again, Spider-Man lets go to shield everyone. As he leaves, he tells the Vulture that he left him a parting gift, and a second later, the Vulture was electrocuted. Spider-Man swings down, rescuing a little boy with the name Morales on his jacket. And he says that that's what that guy gets for underestimating him, as well as dunking him. The next day, Peter visits Uncle Ben's grave, telling him, "There it is. You're the only person who knows about my secret. And in the end, I screwed up. I had this awesome power, and I didn't use it for the right reasons. And this is where we are. So even if people around town look at me as some kind of a menace or whatever, I'm still gonna try hard to be the hero that you would have wanted me to be." And there you have it, the latest, greatest origin to the entire Spider-Man tale. Very minor things were changed, like this time Peter Parker used a digital camera, J. Jonah Jameson vaped, and he saved a kid named Morales, and we can assume he's Miles Morales. Did they really need to make this again, even having a new writer? Did we really need it? Anyway, it's probably one of my favorite retellings recently. I just don't see the necessity of it. Don't forget to subscribe to get a ton more Spider-Man content with the movie coming out, and maybe you can follow me on Twitter at Comicstorian. I would really appreciate that. Let's web out together. Thwip!